So if there's one man in this world who has seen every part of the subcontinent very closely, won a World Cup, won countless Test series, and has friends in the entire subcontinent, then it's got to be just one man, and that's Dav Whatmore, an old friend and acquaintance. Dav, welcome to this chat. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm doing extremely well. A little frustrated. Looking forward very much to returning to India to begin my new position with the Baroda Cricket Association, and I can't wait to start.
Dav, so you are in a unique position because everybody in the subcontinent knows you because you've worked in all the four countries, all the four test playing nations. So you understand the culture of the subcontinent better than the others. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think that's fairly accurate to say that. You never stop learning though, but I think, I feel very comfortable around that region. So I think it's fairly accurate, yeah.
Okay, just a second. I'll just change the camera. Just a minute. Okay, fine. No, just a minute. Yeah, okay. The interesting thing is that you were born in Sri Lanka and then moved to Australia. How much of that has helped you in your stints as a coach in the subcontinent?
Yeah, I think pretty much it has a lot to do with it. Even though I was just 8 years of age when I left Sri Lanka for good, you're still brought up in many ways, within that culture. You could be anywhere in the world, and in our case, it was Australia. But you're still within the home. You're subjected to the rules and regulations and cultural things that your parents were subjected to. So you grow up with that set of rules. So the cultural thing was very much ingrained, despite living in Australia, like and my education and playing cricket. But the cultural bit was very much ingrained.
So, Dev, I just wanted to understand, your first stint as coach, you were with Sri Lanka and you struck gold immediately, winning the World Cup. What was that stint like and how did that come about? Because you were really catapulted into that role quite out of the blue, wasn't it?
Yeah, sure. Those sort of things don't happen, too often. And really, I think it's a bit of fate, really, that the way in which it sort of began for me. But really, the Sri Lankan Cricket Board were looking out for a foreign coach. And in their words were somebody in Australia that can do a similar job to what Bob Simpson did with the team. And, when they put it in those words, I thought, bloody hell, Simo, great player in his day, captain Australia, absolute brilliant player. And they want somebody like him. Well, I'm going to do my best. I'm keen to do it. But it worked out really, really good. And in fact, the World Cup final, which we played and beat Australia, he was the coach of the Australian team at the time. So, it was a case of the Sri Lankan team wanting somebody from overseas. I was available. Quite a few months of negotiation, and it fell through, and it all turned out pretty well.
And you sort of molded a side which had a lot of experienced players and a lot of upcoming superstars in Sanat Jayasuriya, Muthaiya Muralidharan. How easy or difficult, Kalu Vitarna, how easy or difficult was it to deal with that bunch? Because, subcontinent egos can be at play and seniority plays a big part. And as I'll come to it later, in your second stint, it did come to play. So how easy or difficult was it to handle that bunch?
If I stop and think now and reflect, I think, it comes back to myself as an individual who, who has the responsibility to try and get the best out of players. That was my first assignment, a very successful one at that. But it wasn't created like, oh, this is my first assignment, I have to do well. It was a case of, right, this is the way I'm going to behave, my behaviour with a set of players who are very talented. And within me, I was making decisions very much on a basis of feel. So when you're talking with senior players who have played a lot of Test matches, more than I did, then if you instill some confidence in them and give them the space, then you don't have to worry about them because they're good. What matters is that they're in the right frame of mind and they're prepared as well as they can. But you can have a little bit more influence with younger ones, and I found myself naturally gravitating more time to those guys. So that was one way that I approached it. The other one was to try and to get the most out of training, to be as organised as possible, and to try and achieve something with nearly every session that you did. Once again, it wasn't a case of I have to achieve this at this training, but the way it worked out was we got a lot out of our training, and that was another significant thing. And the last one I can mention, something that the subcontinent teams were not used to at the time, but I had the benefit of playing and learning in Australia, was that area of looking at opposition and analysing and coming up with plans and that sort of thing. So I thought we were very well prepared in that area as well in those early days. Something that the opposition didn't do.
So when they say these days that we don't worry about the opposition, we just work on our game, that's a lie.
Oh, look, you do got to worry about your game as well, but you certainly do need to have an understanding on the opposition. And there's a lot of work done these days. It's changed. And that's one area where it's really, exploded, and it will continue to as well. But you need to be careful how you use it.
And you've spoken a lot about promoting Sanat Jayasuriya and Kalu Vitarna to the top of the order before that World Cup in Australia. How was it to handle two characters like Sanat and Kalu specifically, and Murli, these three, because all three had different kinds of challenges at that time?
No problem with Sahi and Ramesh, but Murli, yes, you've got to be a little careful how you handle him. I mean, Sahi is also a match winner, but certainly Murli, absolute out-and-out match winners. And when you have those guys in your team, it's very good to have it because everyone benefits from it. I did with Murli. I think I had him around about 100 Test wickets to 300 in my time, maybe a little bit more. And other coaches have also benefited from a match winner like him. So they can be very temperamental. They can be very opinionated because they're so good. So he was number one to handle. We've had some interesting meetings, team meetings, when Murli wanted to advance his strong opinions on selection, which was the wrong time to do it, And so he was not particularly difficult to handle on occasions, but great to work with because he got a huge work ethic. And like any spinner who just wants to bowl and bowl and bowl, he just epitomised that approach, and that's why one of the reasons why he was so good. But Samat and Ramesh also, they were pretty much conventional guys who wanted to do the best to prepare, and then they also took it to competition and really did set the world on fire on occasions.
You then were left out of the role and had to go to Lancashire and did pretty well with them as well. In hindsight, would that break act as a good tiding for you because you learned from a different perspective and came back? to the Sri Lanka
Yeah,
role?
first year at Lanks, I had no idea what I was doing, I'll be honest with you. I went there as a World Cup winning coach into a dressing room that had, 10 out of 11 players wore the England cap. So that was a very sort of pretty, tough assignment to walk into that environment, particularly in a format of county championship matches. Some one-day games which were mixed in and out of those games, and there was no T20. So it was a mixture of one-day cricket and four-day cricket in my first year. Gee, it was very much a learning curve, and we struggled. We struggled to win four-day games, but we were okay-ish with the white ball. And in the Sunday League, we finished third. So at least there was one day in the week which there was some joy. But I'll tell you what, it was a very long season. But the next one was the best, in contrast, was the best season that they ever had in the history, according to the members, and there were a lot of members. So yes, it was a learning curve, and it was once again putting the right people in the right area and creating a very positive environment for performance.
Dab, so when they asked you to come back in '99 after the World Cup
Yeah.
debacle, were you surprised that Sri Lanka wanted you back because of the way you were let go?
Uh, I suppose a little bit. There was an interim committee at the time, and I do
When is it
recall.
not? When is there not
When
a
is it not?
inter?
Yes, more times than not, there has been an interim committee controlling the game. But yes, I do vividly recall it was in our home in Lancashire, in Manchester, with Catherine, the wife, with me. We'd settled down to um, what we thought was going to be quite a few years in a cold climate. And then in comes a guy by the name of Skandakumar, who finished up being the High Commissioner for Sri Lanka in Australia just recently. Anyway, he came along. He was the representative for the Sri Lankan Cricket Board, and he came to England to watch, and was a guest of, obviously, ICC for the World Cup final. So instead of going to the final, he caught a train from London to Manchester, where I picked him up and brought him home, and together, the three of us, Catherine, myself, and Skanda, had a long chat about the prospect of me coming back. And all that was pre-done when he called me first and said, "Dave, are you interested in coming back to Sri Lanka?" And when the answer was in the affirmative, that's when he jumped on the train the next day or whatever, forego the watching of the final at Lord's to come and see us and have a chat to to move along the way to come back as a coach of Sri Lanka.
And you forged a fantastic partnership with Sanath as captain. Uh, you guys made dramatic changes with separate one-day and test teams, leaving out the senior players. Arjuna and Arvinda were left out initially from the one-day team. Arjuna
Mahanama.
retired. Mahanama being dropped. So lots of changes, and it sort of shook up Sri Lankan cricket, and it didn't go down well, certainly with the older players. But you guys did very well in that 4-year period, except for the defeat in the final in 2003. Overall, if you see that the 2003 to 99 to 2003, it was a very successful Sri Lankan team.
Yes, it was the semi-final in Port Elizabeth in South Africa. Yeah, against Australia too, the eventual winners. But yeah, where I rejoined them middle of the year, 31st of July. I recall we landed there, and it was the view of the cricket board and the selectors, who had a new chairman, Siddharth Wetmore, that there was going to be all these changes, and they felt that I was the one that would team up the best with the new captain Sanath to revive Sri Lankan cricket. They had a horrible '99 World Cup, as you recall, and it was the start of another 4-year cycle to build up that team to try and do something. Culminating in the World Cup, and we had a lot of success. You're right.
And the bitterness in the older players, was it easy to handle?
Again, nothing personal. There was nothing personal directed towards me. Aravinda sadly was, I remember he's telling me that he felt that he was uh, incorrectly looked at as a reason why they didn't do well in the World Cup in England. Not just him, he didn't have a good series, and neither did a lot of them. So he was, initially left out of the team. So, but no, I can't say that I felt bad that any senior players were looking at me and pointing the fingers. That wasn't the case.
You you sort of made it a habit now to pick up a bunch of young players and turn them into better cricketers or a better team, because you moved on from Sri Lanka to Bangladesh, and this time around from 2003 to 2007, the Bangladesh team rose in stature because they had their first Test victory, win over Australia, and reaching the Super 8 stage in the 2007 World Cup. Was that an easy transition from Sri Lanka to Bangladesh?
Yeah, it was really. But that 2007 World Cup was the first time I met you, I think,
Yeah.
when we were scheduled to play India in that very first game. And we spent quite a few evenings in the Hilton Hotel with a nice, cool beverage, having a chat. That was really good. But no, I didn't think it was a difficult transformation. And you talk about going into teams that needing some help, and that's fine. And I'm happy to be in that environment, but I don't go looking for it. It's the way opportunities come around, and opportunity came for me directly after, Sri Lanka finished in 2003, and then I was glad to take that assignment and do the best I can and help those guys. And it was also 4 years of good memories, some difficult games, but also some significant wins as well. We were much better in the white ball format than we were in the longer game, but there was definite improvement in there as well. When you look at comparative opposition with like Zimbabwe, we won our first Test series, and that was a good thing.
And you've had two 4-year stint. Do you think that a coach has a shelf life, and that's why you prefer not to go beyond, say, because Duncan Fletcher and John Buchanan, Bob Simpson, Mickey Stewart, Intikhab Alam probably could still come back as coach of Pakistan. But, uh, these guys sort of had a very long tenure, but you prefer 2 4-year stints?
It's, again, worked out that way. Certainly with Sri Lanka, I would have been more than happy to continue after that the semi-final loss. The team played very well to get there, I must admit, but that wasn't to be. That really wasn't my decision. It was very much a cricket board feeling that they'd like to move in a different direction, and it was amicably done, no problem. With Bangladesh, that was more my doing. There was some speculation, and on occasion strong speculation, that I would take over India. So I was a little bit naive at the time, and I was really keen to pursue that line, but it just didn't work out that way. So I put in my papers with Bangladesh to leave, but sadly I didn't have another job to go to because it didn't work out with the BCCI at the time. But it doesn't happen that I just want 4 years. I think it varies from assignment to assignment. Sometimes it's the right time to leave, and sometimes it's not. And sometimes you've got no say in it.
And what happened with BCCI? Because you had a famous meeting with Ravi Shastri, Niranjan Shah, and Shetty in Dhaka. Lots of speculation that you're coming in. It almost seemed like a done deal at that time.
Yeah, I don't know. I did spend quite a little bit of time, in the hotel room with those guys you mentioned. It was quite late at night. But you never really know. I mean, I was always hopeful that something might, eventuate. But now I know a lot different now how it works. And there has to be someone in a very, in an official capacity, not just in a hotel room having a good chat with some important people. I have to say, but nevertheless, it'll be done differently, and I know that now.
And at that time in 2007, it seemed like you are the bride that everybody is looking for, because there was speculation that you will become England coach, India coach, Pakistan coach.
Wow.
Uh, you were everywhere. You must have felt like the eternal what do you say, the beauty that everybody is quoting.
Nice to hear it, but gee, I don't know how true that all was. But it was nice to hear it at the time. Nice to hear it now. But things happen for reasons, I guess. And when I look back at what I've done, I certainly haven't got any regrets. Maybe except when I should have stayed at Knight Riders instead of going to the PCB.
And at that time, there was also there's also a report in the papers that Arjuna spoke to Talat Ali and asked Pakistan not to look at you. Were you aware of that particular angle as well
Yeah,
in 2007?
yeah, I heard about it. I read about it. That sadly Arjuna's giving me a reference that I didn't really ask for. But people who listen to that, I think, I'd worry more about that, to be honest with you, instead of hearing it from the horse's mouth to believing other people. Then anyway, look, as I said, that was a little bit sad at the time. That was the first time I was going with the Pakistan team. I wasn't referring to that. I was referring to the second time when after two editions with KKR, that I left a team that was always destined to win that IPL, and I wasn't going to be there, sadly.
How difficult was it to leave the role at KKR? Because I remember talking to you at that time, because you were quite passionate about the work that you guys were doing, especially in Bengal, because you guys were also doing some consultancy work with the Cricket Association of Bengal at that time, and you're spending time like that through the year.
It was really good, I have to say, that I was also lending. I was full time with Knight Riders, but the only coach to be full time, because I really enjoyed my time, as you mentioned, in the subcontinent, and I was engaged with the youth teams of CAB also, and that was it was a terrific opportunity to get involved with the youth there, and also to create a nice little relationship between Knight Riders and CAB, which at the time wasn't all that good, I recall. So that really went a long way into repairing, good relationships with them, and it proved profitable, as well as a lot of success. And the reason I left, Venki Mysore was appointed as the new CEO, and terrific administrator, very sound mathematical mind as well, with being an accountant. Very successful in startup companies in his history prior to coming over. And he was going to reduce my time from full-time, which I had always been involved with all my cricket coaching to that time, into something like 3 months, and I wasn't comfortable with that. But now that if I had that to make that decision again, I probably would have accepted it and then got into other things over the remaining sort of 8-9 months of the year.
And between the KKR job and the Bangladesh job, you were also involved with the National Cricket Academy in Bangalore. Not just National Cricket Academy, India A, India Under-19, and you won the Under-19 World Cup with young Mr. Virat Kohli. What was that like, that phase?
Oh, it was really good. It was wonderful, because our coaches that we had at the time went on to, to have good careers, and they're still having good careers. Bharati Arun, who's a very good bowling coach, currently with the national team. Sridhar, who was a wonderful fielding coach with us, and now is also with the national team. So a guy called Nanavati, an older, wise gentleman with batting and wicket keeping. Doc Suratwala, who who was very good from the theory angle point of view. Really good bunch of guys who created an environment where all contracted players of the BCCI now wanted to come. I had a great fitness coach in Paul Chapman, a really good physio with Paul Close. So that completed the set of staff that people knew, the players knew they're going to get some value when they come down to Bangalore to get whatever they wanted. So that was a really wonderful thing. And because I was full-time, the BCCI used my services with the under-19s, as you said. We had good success there in Kuala Lumpur in the World Cup, and then also with India A when New Zealand and Australia toured. I enjoyed that as well. So that was a good thing that they used my expertise at the time.
And did you ever foresee that Virat would become what he became later on?
Not at the time, to be honest. I've always said that. He was a talented player then, a little bit chubbier then, but still had the same, confidence. Very confident young man. But skill-wise, probably not the best, but hard worker. It wasn't until, as you know, when he lost a lot of weight, which takes a lot of discipline, that we all knew then, he would be able to be a successful player for the national team. And really, it's how far that he wanted to go will determine the success that he has. So it's been wonderful for him. And I was pretty pleased to be part of his development.
Any interactions with him as captain that you still remember that stood out at that time?
Oh, at that time? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, he missed out on some runs a couple of times, and I was just he came up to me and, he was keen to have more of a contribution. And my advice was to try and ask him to be there in the 40th over, because he's a top order batsman. And often he would take the responsibility of himself to increase run rates when there was no real need, because there was plenty. 50 overs, a long time. And if he's batting, at the start of the 40th over or the early 40s, then, gee, he's going to accelerate at a rate that, will give us the total that we want.
So by this time, you have won a 50-over World Cup with Sri Lanka, under-19 World Cup with India, IPL title with KKR, and
No, not the title. That was the year before the title.
Year before the title, yeah. And you had countless series wins with Sri Lanka, and you upstaged India at the 2007 World Cup. You really had done probably everything possible in that space, and then you moved to a team which is quite volatile and can be quite difficult to handle, and amongst the four subcontinent teams in Pakistan. So you really went from an aggressive Virat Kohli to a staid Misbah-ul-Haq. That's quite a journey to make.
Yeah, very much so, and never one, never a good one when you have a change of chairmanship in your time. Zakir Ashraf was the chairman. He signed me up, and then when somebody else comes in, like that Namjan Sethi, your days are numbered. Because they always want to do things their own way, and instead of seeing what they have got, often is the case that because they're new, they want their own people and they want to do it their way. Then your days are pretty much numbered, and life isn't that easy. But I managed to stay my 2 years and leave amicably. There was some success, but not as much as I would like, obviously. But it was enjoyable and very much a learning curve for me.
And recently we've had Grant Flower talking about how Yunus Khan pointed a knife at him at breakfast. Did you have any such wild interactions with the players?
I don't believe that Yunus Khan would have done that with any malice. It would have been a joke, surely. No, my limited time with Yunus, I found him to be very much a gentleman, one that worked hard on his game. One who, would be open for suggestions, but also one who I knew his own game and knew his parameters and knew what he needed to do to perform. I helped him along the way with trying to achieve those things. But I can't believe that that was done with anything other than a bit of a laugh and a joke.
Not even a fork pointed at you?
No.
Not, not from Yunus, but any other player?
No. It was they're all good lads. You know, they all wanted to get ahead of their game. They're keen to work. Selections, you know, continue to be not a problem, but an interesting area that, you know, I always feel slightly differently on occasions. But that's the way it is. The committees are created to make those decisions, and you just got to go along with it.
And were you happy that you didn't know much of Urdu? Otherwise, you would have spent half your time trying to understand what the former players are saying on television.
Well, they were the problem. You know, the media in Pakistan is a big problem, and they, in many ways, are too much of an influence with decisions that are made at board level. You know, but you're right. I didn't watch too much of those cricket shows because I couldn't understand it anyway. So it was good. You know, ignorance is bliss sometimes.
And your last stint was with Zimbabwe, which ended very abruptly. Was it a bitter experience in that sense compared to Pakistan or the other teams?
Oh yeah, I mean, again, you know, I had a change of chairmanship. You know, Wilson Manassi signed me up. Then, in a very unusual way at an AGM, he's thrown out. And the way in which it was done was very questionable. And this new chairman comes along. What does he do? You know, your days are numbered there as well. So any excuse to get you out, and it was very harshly treated. The reasons given for my dismissal were nothing that bore any resemblance to what's on contract. But you're in Africa, you're in Zimbabwe, and you just do the best you can to quietly get what you need and get out. And that's exactly what I did with the help of the ICC. So it all worked out well in the end.
So is that it for you in terms of being attached to international teams, or are you still open to being with international teams?
Chandresh, I don't think it's ever wise to say never. You know, I don't like to say never. Where I go from here, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty much a fatalist. I think fate takes you to where you're supposed to be. Right now, I've got a very important job with Baroda. I'm looking forward to that very much. And what happens, you know, after that, I don't know. But I'm really, you know, physically I feel good. I haven't lost any fire in the belly for, you know, to achieve. And so as long as I'm able to, you know, to physically throw, catch, hit, you know, my knowledge is improving all the time. So I would never say never.
You've done stint with Kerala. You've done a brief stint with Singapore. How were those stints, especially being involved in domestic sides and with an associate side?
With the domestic scene in Kerala, that was my first experience when in BCCI domestic competition. I found that a challenge, not easy, I tell you, to do well in the three formats. But we had terrific success. We had, you know, for the first time in elite level, Kerala making the quarterfinals in my first year. So, you know, I was a little surprised, I guess, but the way in which the boys went about their work, you know, demonstrated that they really wanted that success. And it got better the second year when we were semi-finalists. Sadly, the last year didn't work out the way in which, you know, we all thought it would go, but that's the way it happened. So 2 out of 3 years was wonderful. It opened the eyes of a lot of people in Kerala of what potential there is in that state if it's run properly.
And Singapore, what was that like?
Singapore, it just worked out that I had some time after finishing my 3 years at Kerala. So I was contracted for a very short time, I think 6 weeks, to work with the team to see whether we could win the Eastern qualifying for the T20 Asia Cup. So, you know, oppositions like Nepal, which was washed out, I have to say, but Hong Kong was not easy. Malaysia had just beaten Hong Kong in practice matches, 5 in a row, beaten, to play them. Hong Kong, not Hong Kong, the home team, Thailand was obviously going to be an easy one, but to beat the other two, not easy. So, we finished topping the group and qualified for that next, for the next tournament, which didn't eventuate because of this virus. The Western group had already been played and won by UAE and Kuwait, I think. So 4 of us were going to, along with Hong Kong, Singapore, Hong Kong, and those 2 teams were to meet to battle it out to see who joins the big boys in the Asia Cup, again, which we don't know what's going to happen.
And you're now going to be doing a role with Baroda as director of cricket. Did it come as a surprise?
No, not really. I knew that, my experience in India and our successes, I feel confident that I'd be working there. And when the opportunity arose, I was very glad to pursue it. And it's ended with an agreement for 2 years. And as I said, I'm really keen. I wish I was there now. The boys have started doing their physical work. I wish I was there now. Shedding a few bloody pounds myself and getting some perspiration up working with them.
And you also work at a center in Chennai, am I right?
I did that for 3 years, yeah, the Whatmore Centre for Cricket at the Ramachandra Centre of Higher Education. That was for a 3-year stint. Again, it was, it allowed me to be involved with the younger ones and the youth in Chennai particularly. 3 years was good.
Dev, your own experience as a player, being part of the Australian team in the 79 World Cup, 79 tour to India, was cut short by the World Series players coming back into the Australian team. Did your own experience of not being able to kick on because of the circumstances at that time, did that ever play a part in you becoming a better coach because you understood the psyche of the players having gone through it yourself?
Yeah, pretty much. I think you would have done your research pretty well with that question. 7 test matches, sadly, was all I played, but from a talent and ability point of view, certainly could have gone on many years after that. But, you require more than that, of course, for success. The ability to have a sound mental approach, strong mental approach was what I lacked. And that, more than anything else, allowed me to understand what these younger guys are going through and what would they need in order for them to give them a good chance to succeed. So yes, the short answer is very much yes, that it's helped me to get that across.
Now, I just wanted to do a small thing where I'll mention the name of the captain. You just need to say the first few words that come into your mind because you worked with different kinds of captains over the years as a coach, in your role as coach of various teams.
Here we go. Okay.
Arjuna Ranatunga.
Shrewd.
Sanat Jayasuriya.
Devastating.
Misbah-ul Haq.
Very honest, very cool man.
Habibul Bashar.
Happy, very happy guy. I need more than one word, but a lot of ability, a little bit of an underperformer, but very much a team man.
Gautam Gambhir.
Focused, absolutely focused.
Virat Kohli.
Physical, absolutely physical.
Thanks a lot, Dev. It was fun chatting with you as ever. I think that it was really, really fun because it's good to go back in time and look back at your time as coach with various teams and the successes that you've had over the years.
Wonderful, Chandresh. Take care, mate.
You too, and hope to see you soon.
Me too.
Thanks a lot.